It's the ironic situation that sums up the preposterous handling of this pandemic. Just hours from so-called Freedom Day, a moment that was meant to mark the return of English civil liberties and our former lives, the Prime Minister and the Chancellor are locked up, just about to start a pointless 10 days in isolation, despite neither of them having COVID-19. It's a direct consequence of the PINGDEMIC now damning British businesses already decimated by 15 months of lockdown. Of course, it wasn't the instinct of Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak to follow the rules. Initially, we were told they were going to launch a pilot scheme that allowed them to be tested each morning and then continue working.
We did look briefly at the idea of us taking part in the pilot scheme, which allows people to test daily, but I think it's far more important that everybody sticks to the same rules, and that's why I'm going to be self-isolating until the 26th of July, Monday, the 26th of July.
So, there you go. A scheme that you or I can't use, of course, but Michael Gove already did after a football jolly to Portugal. But after just 2 hours and 38 minutes of increasing public outrage, as you saw there was a total U-turn. But that initial decision is what I care about tonight, because it's indicative of the government's do as I say, not as I do approach to their guidance. Well, we're fed up with it, especially given the data does not make the solution at all sensible. An Oxford University study, for example, shows 15 out of 16 people ordered to stay at home have no trace of the coronavirus. And that's a growing number of people, given 530,126 self-isolation alerts were sent in the week to July the 7th, a 46% rise on the previous week. Stop the madness. The Armed Forces believes the app could put national security at risk because 5,200 military staff members are off work isolating. Stop the madness. 1 in 4 junior doctors have been ordered to isolate. Stop the madness. London's entire Metropolitan Tube line was shut this weekend, and passengers on Northern Line trains were warned not to travel between Sheffield and York due to too many staff isolating. Stop the madness. The former Tory leader Ian Duncan Smith put it best today when he said, "We're hours from Freedom Day, which has been heralded as the final step towards a normal life, yet we are like a prisoner who has had their cell door locked but is afraid to venture out in case a guard shoots him." To me, there's an easy solution to all of this. Axe the failed Matt Hancock's useless app and test and trace regime. Or introduce the August the 16th rules immediately. That means anyone who has had 2 jabs doesn't need to isolate, or likewise if they've had 1 dose of the vaccine and tested negative. But a plea from me tonight, please ignore the former Prime Minister Tony Blair, who is in the Sunday papers trying to influence the government again with a smorgasbord of proposals that include vaccinating the over 12s and compulsory vaccine passports. The sad thing is that a vacuum in leadership means Blair's so-called innovations are getting far too much attention from officials. But when it comes to widespread vaccination of our kids, that's not going to happen, for now at least. The Joint Committee on Vaccination has, according to the Sunday Telegraph, advised ministers against rolling out the vaccine to children. Only those aged between 12 and 15 who are considered vulnerable will be offered the jab until further evidence is available on the risks. A small dose of sanity today from officialdom. The pathetic flip-flop decision, though, to introduce special new travel rules for France could be the death knell for this year's summer holiday season and the already devastated travel industry. How can anyone book a holiday with even the slightest dose of confidence with the government so intent on causing constant chaos at the last minute? Even the fully vaccinated will need to isolate at home for 10 days on return home from France, despite it being on the amber list. And as International Air Transport Association boss Willie Walsh said, the UK is entrenching itself as an outlier in its confused approach to travel. This, in turn, is destroying its own travel sector and the thousands of jobs that rely on it. The government seems to be making up the rules as they go along and thumbing their nose at anyone who complains. The so-called Amber Plus list, so that's what France is now on, had never been mentioned before. Well, let me tell you, getting away for many folk at this point is essential, whether to see family and friends or for mental health reasons. And the vast majority of us simply cannot afford to take 10 days off work to isolate at home. TV presenter and campaigner Kirsty Allsop tweeted at the weekend, "I am starting to reach the horrible conclusion that the only way to address some of this idiocy is with mass civil disobedience. If every vaccinated person returning from France simply refuses to quarantine, what can they actually do?" Where Kirsty is definitely right is that this is in our hands now. If the public starts standing up against these catastrophic last-minute decisions, the government will be forced to listen. Now, I didn't expect this, but Prince Charles and Camilla have provided a beacon of sense in the middle of the latest COVID madness. So last week, Camilla shared the failings of many as she dared to admit she can't wait to get rid of awful face masks. And now Prince Charles is expected to ditch his mask unless government regulations insist he stay muzzled. The first test will be during a visit to Exeter Cathedral tomorrow, where the Mail on Sunday reports he is not planning to cover his face. That will be a great message from the future king to the rest of the population that the time has come for all of us to embrace normality before we forget what that's even like. And by the way, if you're planning to go to one of the nightclubs that opens in just under 3 hours' time at midnight after 16 months of closure, then I salute you. You're doing a great thing for the country. Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.